As a data person, one of the things I love about Complete College America is that we always start with the data. But we also understand that the data aren't enough. They have to be communicated clearly, and they have to be communicated and paired with compelling stories that really show the problem. Despite higher education's long history with data, I've got to be honest, far too often the work of my data people ends up sitting on dusty shelves or in inboxes and complicated reports or long tables that really only we can read. So really, the secret of what Complete College America does often lies in the hours that I spend with our Vice President of Communications, Blake Johnson. Blake can't join me here on stage right now because he's making sure that our communications run on point. And our conversations aren't always easy, but they are key to us being able to create a clear message that actually drives change in the field. The synergy between data and communications is essential, and there's perhaps no better example of this work than the story of the 15 to Finish initiative from the University of Hawaii system. As you listen to their stories, think about the work that the communications professionals did to identify the right data, and how the data professionals did to identify the right data, and how the communications professionals were able to identify the right audiences to communicate that data to and the best way to communicate that data. Consider how data was used to identify or to clearly communicate challenges, and how communications was used to show opportunities to address those challenges. But perhaps most importantly, consider the role of data leaders and communication leaders sitting at the table together. What would have happened if one of them weren't at the table? It's my pleasure today to introduce Risa Dickson and Teri Yamashige.
We're delighted to be here to share the story of our journey on the 15 to Finish, journey that we've been on. It's interesting that we're in a place that's so beautiful, where so many journeys have come through. So many people on the way to their destinations or points of intersection have come here, met up, and then gone on to their respective journeys. However, it is not lost on us that Hawaii is the one place that you cannot get to by train. I'd like to also welcome our team here, who is also responsible for the wonderful work that we're doing. And as we start, I'd like to explain a little bit about who we are. Hawaii happens to be the most remote island chain in the world. We have 8 wonderful islands, 6 of which have either campuses or learning centers on them. We have our organization, our institution is comprised of 10 campuses. We've got a flagship institution that's a research one, 2 regional comprehensives, and 7 community colleges. Roughly, we have about 51,000 students system-wide. So in 2008, our state, the P20 Partnership for Education, came up with a completion goal for the state. Many of us have completion goals. We were going to do 55 by 25, 55% of our population, working age adults. We're going to have an education, either a 2-year or 4-year completion by 2025, and we've been actively working towards that goal. As successful as we've been, even at this point, we're going to be about 43,000 degrees short. So we're really stepping up our actions to meet that goal. At the same time, in 2008, in an effort to understand how to meet these goals, we decided to become more adept at performance measures. What are the performance measures that we needed to start tracking and using to determine what is going to help our students be successful and how we're going to get there? Also, about 2010, we created the Hawaii Graduation Initiative. It was a system-wide institutional commitment to moving students forward in terms of completion, getting students into college and getting people through college. At the same time, CCA happened to start their completion work and invited us to to a completion seminar, I guess, or a completion convening. This is not working. I'm sorry, I have a problem with these things. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So the states were asked to bring their data and look at their data in terms of one of 4 goals. What resonated with our team was reducing time and accelerating success. What we were realizing when we looked at the data, I wasn't there at the time, but what I'm understanding is that we had a dismal graduation rate, full-time, on-time graduation rate. It was about 21% for our campus. But our 150% graduation rate wasn't all that bad. Sitting at the table was an external data person who had come with the team from an outside agency. And she came to the realization, looking at the data, that there's no way somebody could graduate in either 2 years or 4 years without taking 15 credits per semester. It was like a light bulb went off. And so they started talking about the data in terms of how do we create a culture change of having our students take 15 credits a semester to get them through more quickly. More deeply looking into the data, we realized that at the 4 years, only between 15 and 37% of our students took 15 credits a semester or 30 credits a year. And at the 2 years, the average was 7%. There was no way these students were going to get through and get through in a reasonable amount of time, and our graduation rates were very low, like I said, in terms of 4-year. Our flagship institution with heavily traditional students had a 21% on-time graduation rate. So we realized that we needed to really start looking at the 15 credits. When we dug deeper into the 15 credits per semester, we realized initially that students who took 15 credits a semester actually did better academically. So what we did is we put together something that we called an academic preparation score. And the academic preparation score was a composite of metrics such as high school graduation rate, high school GPA, high school standing, SAT scores, and things like that. And as we got into the data, what we learned was that regardless of level of academic preparation, students who took 15 credits or more did better. They did better. So initially, the team looked at that and said, well, of course. Students who take more credits are going to be better students, they're going to be better prepared, and they're going to do better. They're going to be more successful. But that's not what we were finding. When we looked at the data, as you'll see, we found that at every level of academic preparation, students did better when they took 15 credits a semester. This held true for the underrepresented minority students and for our Pell students too. So we realized at this point, this was an amazingly powerful piece of information in terms of not only student success, but in overall student success with all of our populations. When we started looking across the country and into literature, we found that this was consistent with what leading indicators were in the literature, and also consistent with what other institutions were finding also. So at this point, we realized we needed to start looking at data in terms of not just reporting and understanding where we are, but thinking about it in terms of how do we use data to move the institution forward? How do we use data to make cultural changes? We all know that full-time is 12 credits, right? Federal financial aid, when I went to college, when you all went to college, probably you were told 12 credits is full-time. But we needed to change that because 12 credits really isn't full-time if you're going to be on a schedule that's going to get you out in time. If you're going to get students through reasonably and you want to increase graduation and success rates. Many of you also know that when you go to advisors or you go to faculty and you say, you know, students need to up the game, they need to take more than 12 credits, what you often hear back is, you know, you need to let them ease into college. Or what about the students in remedial courses? You know, they really need more time. So we knew that we were going to be up against not only changing the culture generally, but we were going to be up against some of what we often encounter in terms of resistance to change, in terms of how we've really thought about what it means to go to college, how many credits students should take, and those kinds of things. So at that point, the team decided that they needed to embark on a communication campaign that hit both internal and external constituents. And at that point,
And
I'm
that's
going to turn it
where
over to
I came in. So that is when I was asked to join the Hawaii Graduation Initiative group. So we had this really compelling, eye-opening, jaw-dropping data, and we needed to share it. And I think one of the critical things that was a key to the success of the 15 to Finish campaign is that very early on, as Risa said, there were two audiences that were targeted. The traditional approach would be to go through the internal audiences, to get your academic advisors on board, to talk to the faculty, that this is what we're going to do. And that happened, but the team decided that instead we were going to go ahead and do a mass media advertising campaign that reached students and parents. And so that was critical. At the same time, though, we were talking to internal audiences and building our communications to them as well. So know your audience. Know who you're speaking with. The other thing that was a key was having the actual monetary support from the Office of Academic Affairs. They had never advertised before, so this was completely new to them. But what they did was there was no advertising line item in the budget. So they went back to their operating budget and carved out a portion for this public campaign. So actually my job was pretty easy. The data was there and the money was there to actually support the story. So back then, this was 2011, full-time was, of course, defined as a student taking 12 credits. So just the message that full-time is now 15 credits. If you want to graduate on time, you need to take 15 credits. That was really interesting. It was also very new. People had not talked about full-time in the context of 15 credits. So we had new and interesting information. But we needed a little more. We needed to share not only that you needed to take 15, but why? How is it going to benefit you? So we had the data team drill down and actually come up with more information for us, such as you're more likely to earn a higher GPA, you're more likely to graduate at all, you'll save on tuition because at our four-year campus, you wouldn't have to pay for the 5th, 6th, or 7th year. And to students, we said, hey, this is what college is about. It's about getting your degree, joining the workforce, and start earning a wage. So that was all new. It was interesting, but it wasn't astounding. And this is what really helped us frame our message. In 2011, Complete College America shared this report. And if you look at this, what it says is that out of 100 students who are entering Hawaii's public colleges or universities, only one graduates on time with an associate's degree. One out of 100, and only 5 graduates on time with a bachelor's degree. So this was like astounding. And only 27 of those 100 students graduates at all. So this is the kind of information we use to frame our message, to share with the public. Did you know? This was previously unknown. Let me just change my... We also looked at data from the U.S. Census Bureau, Pew Research, Georgetown Center on the Education and the Workforce to just start to compile the data. And we were asked by CCA, how did the communications team, how was it okay for us to actually use such simple data in our communications? How was this okay? And it was actually the executives in the Hawaii Graduation Initiative who worked really hard with the data team to start to distill this data down into consumable chunks. Remember, our audience was parents and students, so we needed for them to understand what we're talking about. And so it was just very easy, consumer-friendly data that we ended up sharing. Our communication strategy was, our objectives were fairly simple. One was to change the definition of full-time student from 12 to 15, a student taking 12 to a student taking 15 or more credits. And the other thing was to share the benefits of why that was important. Our strategy included developing a branding theme, which is 15 to finish, which served as an umbrella over all of our communications. We also created tailored messaging for parents, for students, for the academic community and the business community. And we developed a media campaign that included our video, which we're going to share with you, web, TV, print, and collateral. And one of the things here that we did on purpose was the University of Hawaii had a media schedule that was placed pretty moderately. When we went in and talked to our the media in Hawaii, our network affiliates, to buy the advertising campaign, we didn't go in as a University of Hawaii. We went in as a new advertiser that needed to share a message, a PSA. We told our media in Hawaii, this is a really important message. We need to tell students that they need to take 15 credits. So although it was a UH program, by approaching the media this way, these were technically new dollars coming into their stations. They gave us much more time in bonus non-paid PSA spots. So we went in with a schedule of about 70,000 in paid advertising, and we received 60,000 in non-paid advertising. We also enlisted partners to spread the word, and this was another thing that was critical. We are a 10-campus system. There are communicators throughout the campuses. So very early on, we invited them to provide feedback about the campaign. And even they had a little bit of doubt about, do we really want this message to be shared with incoming freshmen who are just coming out of high school? Do we really want to push them to 15 credits? We simply shared the data with them, and that got them on board. They were like, okay, we can see why we need to do this. So they adopted the campaign as their own. They worked it within their campuses, put it on their website, and that was another reason for its success. We also shared this information and data with the Hawaii State Department of Education to get their graduating seniors to hear the message. And they too said, what, 15 credits a semester? Isn't it typically 12? But again, we shared the data and they were sold. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go back. We're not getting along with this thing very well. So, how did we know if we're successful or not? Anytime you do a campaign, you ask yourself, okay, the message is going out, but how do we know? How do we know if we're having the impact, if the messaging is the right messaging? So, when we looked at the data, and you'll see that we started the messaging about 2010 or so. So the students who were pre-message were taking, about 37% of them were taking 15 credits or 30 credits a year on average. As the message ramped up, you see that the numbers have gone up from between 56 to 64%. So we know that there's been some impact. One of the things we also noticed is that it wasn't just the first-time freshmen who were getting this message at their freshman orientation or who were getting the messaging. Other students were beginning to take more than 15 credits a semester or 30 a year, and we saw our graduation rates go up. In fact, our graduation rates, you can see them here, they have been steadily increased. The top line is the number, the students who take 15 or more a semester or 30 a year. The bottom line is those who take fewer than 15 a semester or 30 a year. And you can see that there's a big difference in terms of how they're graduating and the rates at which they're graduating. So we've been able to get our graduations up substantially. So it's a big win for all of us, particularly the students, because not only are they saving money on tuition, but they're getting out and making money. They don't have as much of a lost opportunity cost. One of the questions I was asked at CCA last year, we brought one of our legislators with us, and he said, how much money are these kids actually losing if they stay in school? It was a question that he had. So we went back and we did a leave behind for our state legislature that had the savings for students if they graduate in 4 years, which included not just the tuition that they would pay, but what we were calling the lost opportunity cost. What is the difference in wages that they make between not having their degree and having their degree? And it's really compelling and powerful information. But how else did we know we were changing the culture? We were trying to change the way people are thinking, not just about 15 credits, but we're also using the data very differently. We're using data to drive us forward rather than report on where we are. One of the most exciting moments for me actually was last year we were setting tuition for the state, and I was out doing these meetings across the islands to notify people that we were getting ready to change tuition and garner feedback. And at one point in one of my presentations, somebody raised their hand. And I just might add at this point, we have banded tuition at the 4-year institution. So anything above 12 credits, students pay the same tuition rate. And at one point, somebody raised their hand and they said, I have a question that's really bothering me. And I said, what is it? And he said, why are you using 12 as full-time? And we all know that 15 is full-time. That was such a win in terms of knowing that we had begun to change the culture. So we've been able to take our data, use the data to change the culture, which is what CCA is having us do. Change the way we're thinking about things and move us forward so that we can all move national higher education forward. So with that, we're going to turn over to what our video is.
So after launching the Hawaii campaign in 2012, we were invited by CCA to a convening in Denver in 2013. And at that time, all the materials that we had worked on, our print advertising, this video, radio spots, our collateral materials for new student orientation, they were all loaded up to a Dropbox, and all of the states were invited to use these materials. And quite frankly, coming from a private industry advertising background, I was shocked. Because you don't share information like this. But actually, coming from this public institution, we are so happy that we're able to share this material with you and that you've used it and adopted it as your own, tailored it for yourself, or just merely put your own stats in this video. So we thank you for that. And we thank CCA for giving us the opportunity to share these materials.
And on that note, it's really important that we all move together nationally to change where we're going in higher education. It's essential for the livelihood of our country and our culture that we have the most educated people to run the country and to move the country forward. And so we are delighted to not only share our information and our best practices, we're also very excited to be using yours in order to move us all forward. So with that, we thank CCA.